Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Give me a shout out in the Q&A or the chat if you can, and let me know that you can hear me okay. Awesome, awesome. Welcome to everyone today. Hello, good morning, and good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Amy Rubin Mindell, the Director of Community Outreach and Assistive Technology at ATECH, the Assistive Technology Training Center of Connecticut. We're so pleased that so many of you have registered for today's webinar. In this webinar, we'll discuss how two different types of technology, assistive technology and smart home technology, are coming together to give people with disabilities greater independence, safely and securely. This merger of technologies is also providing opportunities for higher levels of care, often with reduced staffing needs and decreased costs. And most importantly, we want to tell you how we have addressed these issues given the current COVID-19 crisis. The webinar was initially designed for member agencies in Connecticut, and we are happy that many of our members have joined in today. But we quickly realized that this topic is so important during the current pandemic that we wanted to include all of you. Today, we welcome you from many US states: Georgia, Kansas, Vermont, Minnesota, Virginia, Alaska, and many others. And Connecticut, of course, along with Canada, Ireland, and a large group of you from Malta. Welcome. Welcome to all, and we look forward to sharing our Connecticut experiences with you. We also look forward to understanding how people outside of Connecticut are addressing the convergence of assistive and smart home technologies. I would like to start by introducing Pamela Fields, the founder and CEO of the Assistive Technology Training Center. Pam is a leader in the field of assistive technology for independence, especially in devising new approaches to independence for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Her pioneering efforts are grounded in a 40-year career in leading agencies that provide services for people with intellectual disabilities, often with complex issues and medical needs. As a passionate advocate for the rights of people with developmental disabilities and their services, Pam founded the Assistive Technology Training Center of Connecticut to assure that service providers and others have a place to gain knowledge and build capacity about assistive technology, and that families can benefit from best practices in how to support their loved ones with disabilities. Pam envisions a world where each person can be as independent as possible, fully connected to and autonomous in their communities, regardless of their barrier issues. Pam, thank you for joining us today.
Welcome, everyone. I am so pleased all of you could join us. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right in and make sure we have enough time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So please note your questions, enter them in the chat section, and we will review them during the question answer segment at the end of the webinar. The ATECH Center was founded to address the lack of knowledge and capacity around the implementation of technology within the provider community. The center provides a valuable resource to assess for technology, identify the appropriate devices, provide training on the devices, get the devices into the hands of the user, and sustain it there. In other words, the ATECH Center offers all the tools the providers need to address the gaps and move into the future. We are seeking to break down disability silos that stand in the way of best practice. We have created an agenda outlining the key components that we will cover in today's session. Our agenda includes clarifying what smart home assisted technology is, assessing and identifying the right solutions, borrowing from lending libraries, training staff for sustainability, covering what it takes to install the devices, securing funding, and probably the most important section of this webinar, utilizing assistive technology to address issues during the COVID-19 crisis. So smart home assisted technology is any tool or device from low tech, like a rubber jar opener, to high tech remote monitoring sensor system, devices that allow people to maintain and or increase their independence levels in their own homes while decreasing reliance on staffing. The use of AT also has an additional positive outcome to the overall system, and that is cost savings that can be reinvested in the system to address waiting lists and inefficiencies. Smart home assistive technology can address the needs throughout the entire scope of someone's life, including but not limited to communication, connectedness, health, medical, physical access, remote monitoring, safety, security, and nutrition. It is important to note that as we increase independence for the people we support, this independence is directly linked to positive physical and mental health outcomes, therefore producing a higher quality of life that spans different aging levels. So before we get into the other components for implementing assistive technology, I wanted to share a success story with you. This is a story about a young woman whose behavioral challenges prevented her from living the life she dreamed. This woman is not someone you would typically consider for independent living. She moved into one of our 4-person group homes many years ago. Mental health issues impacted her ability to navigate through different social situations, resulting in increased agitation and physical aggression on her part, and physical intervention on staff's part. These situations over time continued to spiral into bouts of physical intervention requiring the assistance of multiple staff several times a week to maintain health and safety of everyone in the home. Working with her family, the Department of Developmental Services, which is the major funder for IDD services in Connecticut, and the ATECH Center, throughout a 6-month period of time, Midstate was able to move her into her own apartment. This process started with originally having 24-hour staffing. From there, we moved into a full independent living assessment centered around the use of AT. We installed the technology into her apartment, and we created detailed series of training and trials. Over this 6-month period of time, Midstate was able to wean direct staffing support down to 50 hours a week. It was amazing. This young woman used technology for remote monitoring through cameras and sensors, a sensor system for the stove to help her manage cooking safely, video chat technology for remote face-to-face with staff and families, and electronic door locks for her to be able to enter and exit her apartment on her own. The woman also utilizes natural supports through her family. So this combination of assisted technology, paid staff, and natural supports has allowed her to begin her journey to a lifestyle she is happy with. She now lives in her own home and has had no physical interventions for over a year. She spends hours without staffing and is learning to build her life in her community. These results have had such a positive impact on her life and also a positive impact on the system by producing a cost savings that has been utilized to provide residential supports for someone on the waiting list and to give providers and families hope that most people can be more independent using assistive technology. So with that said, let's move on to the second component. In order to begin this detailed process through independent living assessments based on assistive technology, the center uses set forms created by Joy Zabala to assist in the assistive technology independent assessment process. So the first piece is to get this assessment going. And I think it's also important to note that at the ATECH Center, we have had many requests to help create a smart home without identifying the people who would be living in the home. And we believe that setting up a smart home without detailed assessments on the people living in the home would fail. Each smart home is unique depending on the person who lives in the home. Each person in the home has to be assessed separately for a variety of things, including identifying what their barriers are, assessing individual skill levels of communication and fine motor and reading and writing, reviewing the environment they are going to use the AT in, identifying who the technology will also interface with, whether it be family, staff, community members, or peers, and what all of that skill level is. Researching what types of technology are available to address the person's particular barriers, knowing what is fundable, and finally, identifying what resources the person has, such as internet, computers, iPads, and iPhones. I'm going to try to turn on my video now to see if that's going to give a picture. There we go. Let's see if that works there for you guys. To see a face with a voice might help, but I don't see it coming up, so we'll continue. Once the devices have been identified, it's time for training and trials. The ATECH Center and many centers throughout our country offer lending libraries. These libraries are vital in order to identify best technology for people. Once you have identified the person with a barrier issue and you've conducted your assessment, the lending library is usually the next best step, allowing the person to try the technology before they buy it. This also, as we all know, helps decrease the number of assisted technology devices sitting in our closets going unused. From there, once the device has been identified and the person has been assessed, we move into the training component. It is vital for training, not just to get the assistive technology into the hands of the user, but to make sure it is successful and sustainable. All levels of the agency need to know about assistive technology, from the CEO to the support staff. The CEO, who is going to set the tone and direction for the entire agency. The resource staff, who will provide the procedures and the protocols and hopefully the grant writing to go after all of the technology. The management staff, who are going to create the models and the systems and the staff supervision. And most importantly, those staff supporting the people with the barrier issue. We have all seen assistive technology devices resigned to the closet or a drawer because the person who were trained on the devices are no longer there, or the staff person supporting the person doesn't have the skills to assess and implement the device across environments, going from school to adult services, going from home to the community. Staff need to be able to maneuver through these different environments in order to assure that there's success in the use of the devices. It is imperative that there is a comprehensive training program on the concepts of assistive technology, assessments, usage, and the reevaluation process. Providing a resource that meets this vital component of the process is the reason the ATECH Center was created. And Amy's going to delve into that area a little deeper at the close of the webinar. Now I would like to introduce Marisol De Jesus, our Assistive Technology Coordinator. She is our device guru and will share with you some of the things she has learned around the installation of assistive technology devices.
Hello, everyone. So plug and play devices are the most straightforward devices to install. This will be your Echo devices like the Echo Dot, Echo Connect, and Echo Show. Many cameras like the Wyze and Ring are fairly easy to install as well. All these devices are plugged in and synced to the Wi-Fi in the home. Even a lot of wall mounts are easy to stick on or drill into the wall. Your professional installs would be your cookstop or iGuard, which needs to be installed by a plumber, as well as the MedMinder John and some remote monitoring systems. In-person consultations and installs can be supplied by the ATECH Center. Installations can vary from plug-and-play devices, some remote monitoring systems, smart door locks, bulbs, cameras, etc. Remote consultations, installs, and trainings can be supplied by the ATECH Center as well. I will be able to schedule Zoom meetings to walk the providers step by step through video conferencing to complete the task.
Thanks, Marisol. And it's very important to learn all of those components of installation and all of the little tricks that go with it in order to make sure everything is successful. The next step after your installation or getting the device is your funding for the device. So the component 6 is a vital part of the process covering funding. Throughout the United States, funding for intellectual disabilities is tied to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid. Under their funding guidelines, they provide waiver services, and these services waive the right for the individual to receive their supports in institutions and allow them to be funded in their communities. In Connecticut, our waivers include seniors, people with IDD, and people with autism, adults and children. Out in the world, there's also a plethora of grants available from people, from foundations, and from corporations. All of these are helpful at obtaining the different devices. Some families have resources and are able to private pay. And many of our local communities, whether it's our cities, our towns, our state or local governments, have funds available for purchases and ongoing services like these. I am sure in each state and country there are similar resources and more developing every day. Please keep a lookout for upcoming webinars as the ATECH Center brings together regulators from different Connecticut and federal agencies to discuss the future expectations and funding options. The last part I would like to cover quickly before I get into the COVID situation and go into another story for you, success story, is the need for agencies to change their culture in order to make this paradigm shift happen throughout our world. The current system of support has been one of caretaking, safety, and limited risk. The new models of support and service provision must be one of support, connectedness, independence, integration, and natural resources. And with this comes the natural risks that we all take throughout our lives. This new direction is a push from all of our major funders at all levels, and it's occurring for two reasons. One, through the pressure from the very people we all support and their desire for increased independence, community integration, and aging in place. And from government and taxpayers as the cost of services increase and waiting lists for services skyrocket. Changing agency cultures to support this new paradigm shift in how services are provided will be critical for the future of agencies throughout the world. Along with this cultural shift is the need to create new job descriptions that include knowledge and skills for implementing assisted technology that match the new skills and expectations required of all the staff in order to make this paradigm shift happen. This is a very scary time for many of our families and many of our staff and some of our community members. It is critical for all of us to realize that this new way of operating does not eliminate our jobs or our services. It actually evolves them into the next level. As service providers and families, We must take the time to have everyone embrace the changes. And for us humans, change is very difficult, but inevitable. So the last story I would like to share with you is our process at Midstate ARC that we use to address this new service expectation. As we identified the new expectations and took the concerns of the family and the staff seriously, we began to identify people residing in our current segregated group homes who would most likely be successful and have higher quality of life living more independently. The next thing we did was gather the family and the teams together and consulted and met and reviewed to discuss the whole process and what are all those concerns that people have at the different levels and the places they sit. Families and staff were so resistant to the ideas of full independence and not having staff available 24/7, and they were extremely afraid of all the change. They had a lot of questions and a lot of safety concerns, with one of the biggest questions being, what will happen when they're alone? We decided to address their concerns by upfitting the actual group homes they were living in with technology in order to assess and train the individuals and their support staff in the present environment. We felt that this model would allow us the time to answer all of those questions of concerns so that we could all move forward comfortably in the process. Once the person in the group home was assessed for barriers, assistive technology devices were identified to eliminate the barriers, and these devices were installed in the home. Marisol is going to come on and share with you all these different types of technologies that we installed for training and evaluation.
So to help ease the concerns on what will happen when the person was alone, we installed cameras in the common areas. This allowed employees in the home to see the person served live live during various scenarios. We used WISE panoramic cameras, Ring cameras, and Alarm.com cameras. We also installed remote monitoring systems that have artificial intelligence software that monitors movement through various sensors. These sensors consist of bed pad sensors, chair pad sensors, contact sensors for the doors, windows, cabinets, and refrigerators, as well as emergency buttons that could be pressed during urgent times of need. The emergency button can be linked to caregivers or staff, and if requested, can be linked to 911 dispatch. Motion sensors can be installed throughout the home. Anyone linked to the system will get text messages or calls when a sensor has been activated. Safety devices like the cook stop for electric stoves or the eye guard for gas stoves allow the provider to deactivate the stove from being turned on during certain times. It also allows the provider to program the stove to automatically turn off when the person is not sensed in the kitchen after 5 minutes. The safety sensor for the microwave is used to prevent fires by detecting a chemical that gets released before it begins to burn, which activates the device to turn off the microwave. Medication dispensing devices like the MedMinder John and Livy allow the person to take their medications independently. Both versions are programmed for specific times, and it does not allow for any mistakes like choosing the wrong medication or taking your medication at the wrong time. Systems that provide video supports and communication like the Claris Companion tablet, Zoom, and Skype allow the person served to have face-to-face contact with staff, professional personnel, family members, and friends. With the Claris Companion, providers can get instant reports on the video calls for billing services. The Ring doorbell cameras were installed for safety. This provides communication with the visitor without having to open the door. Remote door locks, like the Wise Smart Lock, allows the person to unlock the door through an app or can unlock the door if the phone is detected near the lock. The Harfo fingerprint door lock, which is my personal preference, allows 4 ways of opening the door. You can open the door via key, key fob, code, or fingerprint. GPS tracking devices like the GTX Smart Soles and the Gizmo Watch allow staff or family members to track the person served via an app or website. Both devices allow geozones, which are program sites that will alert staff and family member when the person arrived or left home. The devices will also be helpful in times of elopement. Organizational apps like the First This Then Visual Schedule HD allow visual aids to be broken down into steps via photo or video. It also provides voice prompting when a photo has been touched on the screen. The Ada Reminder app help keep the person served on task by reminding the person on their scheduled task for the day. This is done with alarms, pictures, and voice recording if preferred. Translation devices like the Smart Voice Offline Translator and apps like Say Hi or Google Translate can assist those with language barriers and are very simple to use. I will now hand you back to Pam.
So after all of these devices are installed in the home, the team then set up a series of trials to begin to test the person's independence, including coming home alone, unknown visitors coming to the door, people calling that they didn't know, fire alarms going off and other safety alarms, taking medications, cooking, shopping, housekeeping, and video conferencing. After 6 months, the first person completed all this trials successfully and moved into his own apartment with assistive technology and reduced staffing of 28 hours a week. So he went from 24/7 to 28 hours a week residentially. This isn't including his day hours or his work hours. He has separate staff for that. And that's usually 30 hours a week. He has been successful and has started displaying behaviors we have never seen before, like helping a person out in the grocery store or interacting with neighbors. So Midstate ARC is going to continue to assess and move people we support into their most independent settings that meet their needs using the above model with any other models we find along the way. So we have done a quick review of the use and success of assistive technology to promote independence. And I think that review was needed so that you could understand those devices and the journey we have taken in order to get us where we are now during this COVID crisis and figure out how do we utilize technology to assist us during this critical time. So in the COVID-19 environment, the focus is no longer on independence as much as it is on supports and safety. The very real possibility of not having enough staffing to meet the needs of the people we support is a scary but highly probable outcome. There are a plethora of safety issues that go along with this decreased staffing. And there is also additional negative outcomes from increased anxiety and a variety of other mental health issues due to prolonged isolation. We feel it is imperative for agencies to give staff the best of the worst options so that they don't have to make that decision on their own, a decision that could negatively impact the people they support and possibly jeopardize their future job security. In order to do this, we believe that agencies need to bring together management, behavioral and clinical staff, and nursing to conduct a detailed evaluation of all services that you're continuing during this time. So in Connecticut, all of the day programs close during this time, and we're providing the services mostly through our residential services. So this evaluation that you need to do is going to include a review to look at every possible situation in those environments. Things like, why is the staff at that level? And what happens if that staff is no longer available? What safety issues does decreased staffing pose for each person in each situation? What if the person bolts, runs, elopes, whatever terms we use, and the staff cannot follow because there's only one staff in the house? What if the person needs constant checks, or they're getting them now for different reasons? What are those checks done for, and is there another way to meet that need? What if the staff have to go to the bathroom and there's only one staff available, or if the staff has to sleep or doesn't have time to cook? So these are just some of the vital questions that occurred during our review. And I am sure each agency, when you conduct your own review, will have similar questions and a lot of new and different issues that we didn't have. So from that review, we created this checklist of issues that helped us identify what we needed to address through assistive technology. So through our review, we learned that we had people that were incontinent and required regular checks. We had people that wandered not just out of the house, but into other people's rooms and space. We had people that were going to interact with the stove when they weren't supposed to and cause unsafe situations. We had personal safety issues of people standing up when they needed assistance and nobody was there to assist them, or falling out of bed or moving out of bed, moving into a different position in bed. We had situations of monitoring those doors and windows to make sure that people didn't access those and move outside. We talked about the safety of the staff when they had to, and the individuals when they had to answer the doors. So we looked at answering doors without opening them. We looked at face-to-face time with loved ones or therapists, medical personnel, and families that would need to occur during lockdown situations, quarantines, or no visitor times. We also looked at connectedness and social needs, knowing, like I stated before, that there are so many anxiety and mental health issues that surface when people are isolated for long periods of time. And then we switched over and looked at addressing the needs of the staff. So if you go down to a low level of staff where you only have one staff left, how do they tend to their personal needs, their need to go to the bathroom, to shower, to sleep? And then is there a way to provide them with some help from remote people looking in and monitoring from other places? So after we did those areas, Mid-State ARC went on to identify, with Marisol's help, all of that assistive technology to put it into the home. So we obtained incontinence monitors that we could place in people's depends that would alert the staff on their smart devices when somebody was incontinent. We put in sensor systems for movement throughout the house depending on what we needed to track per person, whether we needed to know if they were in bed or out of bed, or if they were leaving the room or going into, or if they were standing up or sitting down, different pieces moving around the house. We put cameras in all the common areas in order to allow staff from remote places to help with the monitoring during this crucial time. We installed bed and door and chair alarms in the different houses, rooms, like I mentioned before, under sensor systems, to help the staff know if somebody was starting to stand up and they were going to need assistance. We installed the devices to shut down the stoves only in the houses where that was a problem. And also the GPS tracking devices for elopement were installed only when we had people that elope or leave the facilities. We installed the Ring doorbells anytime our group home didn't have a window in the door where the staff could answer the door and talk through the door without opening it. We installed medication management devices for those people who could utilize that to help when we didn't have staff with med cert, with that certification in order to help pass meds. And then we also looked at every home for video chatting capabilities for families, consultants, and other management needs. And if you remember, I said before in Connecticut, all of our day services were shut down. So along with our residential people and staff being segregated into their homes with no visitation policies and staying in place, we also had all of our day programs, hundreds of people that were now isolated to their houses. So we wanted to develop remote programs for social connectedness to help people get through this time. And after today's webinar, we're going to send a list of technology and links to everybody, things that were helpful for us in the process, hoping they would also be helpful for everyone else. So this next slide is our logo for our closed Facebook page, which is one of the platforms we developed to help connect people. So in a closed Facebook page, only those people invited can get in. So it created a safe environment for the people we support to be able to come into a closed area and be able to interact with each other. Then our staff, and I'm going to switch to the next slide really quick, and this is the schedule that's going on inside that platform. The staff, the individuals served, some families, some community members all got together, and they're starting to run classes. So whether they're doing live video streaming on how to cook chicken or how to do an arts and craft project, dancing, which is a favorite thing, chair yoga, they put all of that in there so that people could react to that. And then we're also using Zoom, which we're using today, and other webinar and video chatting capabilities to run classes such as yoga classes for our staff. We're doing mindfulness and meditations for staff to try to give them tools also to deal with this difficult time. So I think that it shows, and we've been able to hopefully help you see that assistive technology can help us all stay safe and healthy, protecting our staff and the people we support during this COVID crisis. We're going to be sending out resources, like I mentioned earlier, that will include those areas to review by your management, clinical, and nursing, checklist of the issues we found from those reviews, and then a checklist of devices we installed to meet those barriers. And also, Marisol has put together a very comprehensive list with hyperlinks in it of all the equipment so that you will know where to obtain and purchase that equipment to help you move through this process. So now is the time for all of those questions that you've been patiently waiting to ask. I'm going to turn it back to Amy to walk us through this session.
Excellent. Pam and Marisol, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your wonderful questions that have been coming through. We've tried to answer a few of them as we have moved on. And then I'd like to address some of the ones that have come through so that everyone can hear them. One question that I thought was a good one in terms of, well, they're all good questions, but in terms of looking at the issues of electricity at this time and what our backup plans were for our backup procedures. If there's a loss of electricity. So I don't know if Marisol or Pam, you want to speak to that? Marisol, maybe?
Well, a lot of the devices, like your MedMinders, your cook stops, things of that nature, they actually have like a 48 to 72 hour backup battery. So knowing that information, you know, in the beginning would help you to, you know, create your emergency plan if you were to lose electricity.
And everybody with assistive technology in their home should have a backup plan of what happens if the technology fails. We build that into their individual plans, but each of our individuals has a backup plan of what we're going to do if something fails.
Excellent, thank you. Pam, we had a question as well about how in Connecticut does funding for remote monitoring differ from conventional funding for waiver services? So I know that you can probably speak to that a bit.
So in Connecticut, we are very lucky to have a very supportive funding department. The Department of Developmental Services, our commissioner and deputy commissioner and their staff are very supportive of assisted technology and realize the value of it. So they have built into our waiver in Connecticut a $15,000 cap over the life of the waiver. So if the waiver's 3 years, each individual can access $15,000 worth of assistive technology, whether that be to pay for the assessment process, to pay for the devices that you're going to install, and the monthly monitoring of some of the devices so that you could continue that. So things like the MedMinder, the wellness system, the Claris Companion, they all have monthly fees which are paid for under our waiver. And I hope that answers the question.
Excellent, thank you. Marisol and Pam, I don't know for sure the answer to this question, but I'm hoping you might. Are there any assistive technologies in place for taking temperature? We have been, someone said we have people living independently who struggle with this task, and yet, you know, the agencies, the DDS overarching agencies asking that this be done prior to staff arrival.
So Marisol, I know we have research devices that tell us the blood pressure and different things like that. I'm not sure we've come across one that allows for the remote temperature taking, but I don't know if that we've researched it. So maybe that's something that you could research and get back to all of the participants.
Yeah, I can definitely research that because I haven't seen one that'll actually provide that information, you know, via report to someone. But they are the simple thermometers that you can just place on your forehead and pushing one button. But I'll definitely look into that.
Excellent, thank you. And there were 2 questions as well on who controls the stovetop, the cooktop and stove, you know, cooking sensor control. So who makes those settings and sets that up? And if Marisol, if you can explain that a little bit further.
So that will be a professional install. So during the installation, they're going to have someone set those parameters for you in the beginning, and then those settings continue until any changes in the future are needed.
Excellent. Someone was asking if we can provide details on how to access individual living assessments while they're for people outside of Connecticut. This person in particular is in Maine, and I'll give this a shot for now. And if you want to add anything, Marisol or Pam, please do. But we certainly would be happy to help you with assessment issues and conducting assessments. And some of that can be done through the training and support that we provide to agencies to help people learn how to do that within their own agencies. And if that's not the preferred way to go for you, we definitely can travel to some places and be able to help and do assessments, certainly within the areas that are closer to Connecticut, as well as being able to be involved in that process for you and help you with those assessments remotely as well. So we'd be happy to help conduct assessments for you or for anyone who needs them.
I see, Amy, that there was another question about if staff are cooking with people virtually, can they control the stove live time? And I'm not sure that can happen through the cookstop. I think the cookstop is controlled through a sensor system, but there is a new device that we were just looking at that actually cooks the food per the recipe at the temperature the recipe says. Do you remember the name of that device, Marisol?
No, I don't
It
actually.
was a pan.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we can look at that. That's the only thing I can think of for that. But the cook stop runs off a sensor system, so it would shut off if the person wasn't near the stove, if I'm correct.
Excellent. Questions are coming in fast. I'm moving on to it then. Good question here too. Sounds like there are funding options for individuals and families to provide these AT tools in their own homes, but how did you get funding to outfit an entire group home?
Again, our DD provider, the Department of Developmental Services, worked with us knowing we were doing training to move people into less restrictive setting, and they funded that entire upfitting of the group homes.
Awesome. These are great questions and so many good ones. I'm going to make sure I pop back to something else. Someone earlier had asked, since people cannot have visitors in the home at this point to fix and install internet services and technologies when they're, may not be working or things need to be installed, I'm wondering if you can speak to how we're addressing, one, doing some of these installs at this time, and two, what backups there might be in case an internet were to fail.
All right, so I did answer the question. I mean, you can from the person that was asking for that information, apparently the service provider does not want to enter the home. And it's always good to reset the modems for internet monthly, but the person that was experiencing the issue, I guess the modem itself kept shutting off even though it was reset. So it appears that the modem needs to be replaced. So if the company can ship the modem, the person can actually, if someone like a staff can actually assist in the setup, because they typically come with instructions on how to set it up. And also, someone had a good idea is if a hotspot would work, and a hotspot that can be plugged into the wall can actually work on a few devices to help in the meantime until the provider can actually come into the house to help out.
Excellent. And someone just had a question about whether the cookstop only works on electric stoves or if they can work on gas stoves as well. And I know that we've found solutions for both. So I'm hoping that you can speak to what those are, Marisol.
So the cookstop is for electric stoves only, but there is also an iGuard, and that's actually going to be provided in the links that'll be sent to you. iGuard is the one that has to be installed by a plumber for gas stoves.
Excellent. And someone earlier had asked as well what the name of the med dispensers that you would recommend are. I know that will be in the list too, but I'm wondering if you can go ahead and tell them that name now.
No problem. There is the MedMinder John, Jon, and Livy. The Livy actually looks like a Keurig machine, and you can, tap on the button and it'll dispense your medications in a cup.
Awesome. Do you happen to know, there's a question if you know if there's a trial for a MedMinder?
We don't have a trial.
Sorry, go ahead.
We don't have a trial for the MedMinder because that is something that, once it's activated, it has to be paid monthly, and that's through a vendor. So unless the vendor is willing to do that, currently that's not an option.
And I think how we handle that is that we have a full nursing assessment and the nurses on board with us trying the MedMinders for independence. So the person and DDS pays for that device and the monthly fee as we go through the trial. And then if they get to a point which we haven't really seen, or I haven't seen, where somebody didn't need it anymore, you could just back out of it and not pay the monthly fee and give the device back.
Excellent. Someone did ask as well if the iGuard works as well as the cooktop for the electric stoves. I think we've had good success with that.
Yes, because it's actually built the same way. It has its own built-in motion sensor, and you can also program it to turn off the stove during certain times. And you can, you know, add the parameters of 5 minutes or more, depending on what the comfortability is for the person served, which we typically prefer 5 minutes.
Excellent.
One of the questions, Amy, that I see is that somebody was asking, Jordan was asking if we felt that CMS or other government funding sources will be more open to billing for remote services after this crisis. And I absolutely do believe that. I think this is going to open the door for things that people were cautious with before.
It's an excellent point, an excellent question. All right, I'm scrolling back to see if there are other questions. Any other questions that someone wants to add in?
I'm going to jump into another one from Dan of what system that we use for remote monitoring. We've had the most success with there's a bunch of different monitoring programs, by the way, but we've had the most success with the wellness program. And that works through a variety of sensors. Cameras can be put in, medical tracking information can be put into that system. Most of the people that we have living independently are using that system. And then we also, our staff that are doing the remote monitoring off-site have access to all of those different sites so they can respond when there are issues.
Excellent. Someone had asked too if there are any specific agencies or resources for assessing or intervening with visually impaired and non-vocal individuals to support with communication. And absolutely, we have devices for both of these areas within the lending library, and also are happy to talk with you more directly about supports and services for people who need communication support and those who need access due to visual impairments. So thank you for that question.
And also I see from Caitlin, she wanted to know that if we had any difficulties with HRC not improving any of the technology. So in the beginning, it was a challenge. I had to go in myself as the CEO of the agency and explain our process and that we were using this technology to promote independence, not to restrict people's access. And so the state then pushed through that if assistive technology was being used for independence, it would just be pushed through HRC and not held up there. Now, with the situation with the COVID-19, our HRC PRC process has been suspended during this time. So we're allowed to use devices for ways we would not typically been able to use them during the non-crisis time.
Excellent. Again, excellent questions. I'd like to go ahead and wrap up so that we can give the closing screen information to people before our time is up. But thank you to everyone for all of your questions, and we'll look back and review these, see if there's anything that we missed and we can help you with, but feel free to send us your questions as well, and you'll see that, where you can do that on the next screen.
Sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Pam.
I'm going to jump. There you go.
Awesome. I just wanted to thank Pam and Marisol and everyone worldwide for joining us today. It's certainly a vital time to think globally about how we address barriers to independence and the safety and security of the many individuals we support, and to do that in new, creative, and effective ways with these technologies. We invite you to join us in this important work as we strive to create a community of agencies and individuals committed to increased independence for everyone. Please visit our website at www.assistivetechtraining.org to learn more about membership benefits. These membership benefits include webinars on the latest smart assistive technologies and best practices, our customized ATECH Academy for assessment and implementation, a course designed and delivered for us at ATECH by the incomparable Mike Murata. I know that Mike is on the call, so I want to do a shout out to Mike, who's the head of New Jersey's statewide Assistive Tech Act program and other things. And we're in the middle actually of reviewing that course right now to deliver it remotely due to the COVID crisis. So stay tuned for more information about how you will be able to take that course as well remotely, even if you're not nearby in Connecticut. And membership also includes discounted rates on assistive technology and independent living assessments, consultations, individualized training at all levels of your organization, implementation, and remote monitoring. And I really want to point out that includes access to a fully stocked assistive technology lending library with all of the devices that we talked about today and many more. So please feel free to contact us with questions, including your immediate needs during the COVID-19 crisis. While we will share the resources with you from today's webinar, we're available to support you as you assess the needs of your group homes and independent living situations for the people that you support. We'll be happy to set up a time to meet with you online as soon as possible. Thank you again for your time. Stay safe, stay well, stay connected, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.